I had something else I wanted to talk about this week on the show, but considering the last show that I did and the events of the last week and change, yeah, there's something else that needs to be discussed here. So, where am I coming from? Alright, just fade to black. We'll start from the beginning. Star Wars The Old Republic went free to try last weekend, so literally after 7 hours of download I managed to get in and try it. After hitting random character generator, the game made it painfully obvious it wanted me to play as Mike from TechPB. And I realized I've just lost my entire gaming crowd. Just roll with it, guys. As I ran around the world playing the opening areas from several of the classes, one thing that got me was I was doing a lot of things instinctually. Sure, I had to redo a couple of key bindings, but most of what I already knew applied to a game that I have never played before. I was thinking, okay, look for people with weird things over their heads, talk to them, get missions, hit M for the map, see basically where I'm supposed to be going, hit B to look at my inventory, L to see my outstanding missions, and then it hit me. This is WoW. This is basically World of Warcraft. But when you say things like that, it's like walking into the offices of Rhea and saying this. Or it's more like you just want to talk about pretty pictures, but you're talking to an artiste.
And since it has no call to be here, the art lies in the fact that it is here.
Because here's the thing. When you compare MMOs, they share a lot of similarities, mechanically speaking. On the user interface, they all have a mini-map, all your abilities are tied to number keys for ease of use in a combat situation, your character has their own icon with a hit point bar of some kind and a power meter that depletes when you use your abilities. And then when you look a little deeper, you'll find an inventory system, items that you wear that give you bonuses to your stats of some kind, and trees, skills that specialize your character into one role or another. And to that end, you have roles of a healing class, a tanking class, and a make it bleed slash burn slash bruise slash whatever it takes to make the bad thing go away class, or just DPS for short. And while I'm at it, let's talk about missions. It's all basically the same. You go out, find X and bring it back, or kill X number of Y in order to... Wait, hang on. I've covered this before, and I'm really not in the mood for equine sadomicrophilia. So yeah, nobody's really bringing anything new to the table. But when I'm playing a new game, and I think and dare to vocalize that, well, this is kind of like WoW, except for these couple other differences, that's when the hellstorm starts of, oh no, it's nothing like WoW, this is completely different and so much better! Sidebar, backtrack. We could go all the way back to MUDs here, text-based multi-user dungeons, and talk about mechanics, but I really want to concentrate on graphical MMOs, and not rogue-like ASCII graphics. I'm talking about Meridian 59 era. What you see in most modern gameplay can be found in Meridian from 1995. Games like Ultima Online, Lineage, and EverQuest improved on it, sure, but we don't call games Meridian clones. Nope, we call them all WoW clones. So why is that? Why has WoW become the default MMORPG experience online? Well, for starters, it's about the numbers. At its peak, World of Warcraft had 12 million active players. For perspective, if you combine the populations of Chicago, San Antonio, and London, you'd barely be over the peak population of World of Warcraft. For that matter, Sao Paulo has a lower population than WoW had at its peak, so odds are, if you've ever played an MMORPG, you've played WoW. So to that end, this makes a very easy universal translation. Instead of having to explain hows and whys, you can just say, oh, it's like an instance, and everyone gets it. It could be argued that EverQuest did this before WoW, but not all of us have played EverQuest. Wait, don't get ahead of me. But a lot of us have played WoW, so it's a common language. It's something that, well, everyone's copying, and all they pretty much do is change the names of the minutiae, and they keep the same ideas. They may tack on a couple things, like Star Wars added the whole light and dark side meters, but for the most part, nobody really brings anything new. So what exactly did WoW do right? Why does everybody want to become the WoW killer, and why is everybody using WoW as the default? Well, I'm hardly an industry insider, but here's a couple of observations I've made. First of all, Warcraft had a name as a strategy game long before they built an MMO, but as an MMO, WoW is pretty simple to get the hang of. If you dump somebody into Cataclysm now, the opening levels are just one long tutorial that teaches you how to play. Even the most casual player can get the basics down in an evening's worth of play. There's lots to do, in that every NPC seems to have quests for you, and frankly, the combat is pretty easy. All you need to do is hit a button. And here's where I draw in the last show, because anytime that I start talking about any MMO in relation to World of Warcraft, I get one of a couple of generic responses.
Doobie would like you to put on your wings. Collect big Doobie wings and then start flying with us all over Romper Room.
Incredibly condescending.
Get off my lawn.
The grizzled old vet who just can't stand how easy the kids have it these days because he had to walk uphill both ways in a blinding snowstorm in order to play WoW back in the old days, and he liked it that way.
That's a 50 DKP minus! What the was that?
Nerd rage, and of course my personal favorite, hipsterism. The attitude of, oh, well, everyone plays that, and that was so 4 years ago. I get this attitude a lot, as if only true gamers play whatever flavor of the month they happen to be playing. Somehow, the new thing, whatever it is, has a much more complicated combat system that requires more thought and strategy. It goes back to elitism, that subtext being that only newbies play WoW because the only true gaming experience can be found elsewhere. The truth is, as stated before, they're all the same game with just a different coat of paint. I get a lot of grief about not playing Star Wars The Old Republic because, well, I just couldn't justify spending the money on it. So when it went free to try for the weekend, I was happy to jump in and see what the true gamers were doing. Now, I'm hardly a seasoned pro at this gaming stuff, but it was painfully obvious what's going on here. The hype was promising a really dynamic system of combat, like the later produced movies in the Star Wars franchise. And I could tell that's what they really wanted to do, but reality is, well, it really isn't that much different than any other MMO style. On my end of the screen, it's the same thing. You get your rotation down, you button mash, you're watching cooldowns and not the opponents because you've got them targeted and you need to maximize DPS. You look on the map to see what area you gotta go to next to progress the plot. And this is a deeper, more meaningful experience than World of Warcraft in what way?
Something we've tried to do is to get away from that step and repeat type of combat so that when you're playing your character, you don't just attack once or do something where you don't feel like you're actually engaged with your opponent.
No! Because all I'm doing on my keyboard is I'm sitting here spamming the same key over and over again, just like I do in World of Warcraft, because that's the only effective strategy that works in these games. And I fail to see any other strategy that could possibly work.
You never want to swing the lightsaber, you know, again and again and again in the same pattern. You make active choices about whether or not now's the right time to throw that grenade, whether or not you can freeze your opponent, and whether or not you want to charge your weapon up for a really big blast.
Same game, new setting. Now, I did get to some of the later content, and it's the same kind of thing. Crafting, repairs, skill trees, same as WoW, but that's not even the main problem. Nobody has brought anything new to these games because they really can't. You know, short of hardwiring our brains into the net, you're not going to have that free-flowing combat that they obviously want, and even then, unless the players have a complete authoritative understanding of kendo, capoeira, and a strong stomach for vertigo, it's just not going to happen. Until then, it's going to be stand and hack, whether you like it or not. So yeah, when you bring absolutely nothing new to the table, you can't be surprised when people start comparing your new product to somebody else's old product because you've just basically recreated it over here. But what you can do is find a better way to tell the story, and that's one thing I did like about Star Wars The Old Republic. Yeah, the storytelling was a little, pardon the pun, but forced, but I did like the ability to change the mission halfway, or to just tell somebody, smeg off, I'm not doing your mission. I kind of like that. So yeah, it's kind of like WoW, except the glowy swords are actually in context.